A stocks and shares ISA is one of the most powerful types of investing accounts we have in the UK, but very few people actually utilise it. In fact, according to a 2024 survey, just 6% of UK adults had a stocks and shares ISA. This is a pretty shocking statistic, but I think the reality is it comes down to the fact that we just aren't taught about ISAs and investing in general, so how can we take advantage of something we aren't taught about? I know in my case, I just happened to come across an ISA one day and definitely was not taught about it. As I'll show in this video, the advantages of a stocks and shares ISA are incredible, and it is one of the most generous types of investing account in the world, with those from other countries probably feeling a bit envious about how lucky we are in the UK to be able to shelter our investments so well. So in this video, I'll explain what exactly a stocks and shares ISA is, how you can actually open a stocks and shares ISA, and all the rules and details you need to know. Hopefully this clears things up and helps you feel more confident to look into them further and perhaps open one yourself. And if you have a friend who's on the fence about investing or you feel could benefit from this video as well, be sure to share it. It'd be great to get more people utilising stocks and shares ISAs. Okay, first of all, who can actually open a stocks and shares ISA? Well, you have to be 18 or over, and you must also be either resident in the UK or a member of the armed forces or a crown servant or the spouse or civil partner if you do not live in the UK. That second part is probably not applicable to 99% of people watching, but it's good to be specific for those it does apply to. If under 18, there is the option of a junior ISA, but that's a topic for another video. So why would you actually want to open a stocks and shares ISA? I mentioned in the introduction that it is one of the most powerful types of investment accounts in the UK, but why is that exactly? It is because a stocks and shares ISA shields your cash and investments from tax. Any investment gains you make are not subject to capital gains tax, and any dividends or interest you receive are not subject to UK dividend or income tax. In this sense, a stocks and shares ISA can be thought of as a tax wrapper. You could think of it as a shield, blocking HMRC from getting to your precious gains and dividends. Now, it's worth noting that whilst you do not pay most taxes on investments held within an ISA, there are some taxes it does not protect you from. For example, you still have to pay stamp duty on the purchase of some UK stocks, and ISA investments do form part of your estate for inheritance tax purposes. And finally, any taxes charged by foreign governments, such as withholding tax on stock dividends, do still apply. This should not take away from the appeal of a stocks and shares ISA though, as it really is the capital gains and dividend tax protection that is the big selling point, with these having the potential to significantly erode your returns in the long run. With there currently being no limit to the value your investments held within a stocks and shares ISA can grow to, investors can save potentially hundreds of thousands of pounds in capital gains tax by taking advantage of an ISA. In 2022-23, there were over 3,000 ISA millionaires, and this number is set to grow, with analysis by Invest Engine revealing there is also 7,000 people in the UK with ISAs worth between £750,000 and £1 million. Now, you may be thinking, that's all well and good, but I'm not going to be investing a lot. Well, with enough time and regular contributions, you'd be surprised at how much an investment portfolio could grow to. Plus, if you can utilise an ISA, why wouldn't you take the preemptive measure to avoid paying tax unnecessarily in the future? For example, if you contributed just £200 per month into an ISA for 30 years and received an annualised return of 9%, you could end up with over £370,000 in your stocks and shares ISA, and that is with only 72k in deposits. So outside of an ISA, liquidating these investments would result in a hefty capital gains tax bill. And this 9% is actually below what a simple global index fund has returned investors over the past 20 years. So it's not like I'm using some pie in the sky figure here either. That being said, I do of course have to make clear that when investing your capital is at risk, gains are not guaranteed, and past performance does not guarantee future results. ISA rules may also be subject to change in the future. Hopefully not, but we never know what the government will do. So what can you actually hold in an ISA? As the name suggests, you're probably going to be using your stocks and shares ISA to invest in stocks. However, there's a range of different types of investment you can hold within a stocks and shares ISA, such as individual stocks, unit trusts and OEICs, ETFs, exchange traded funds, investment trusts, corporate and government bonds, or you could simply just hold cash in there as well. You don't have to invest it. This is not a video going into detail about any of these, but again, it is worth noting that capital is at risk when investing. The value of investments can fall as well as rise. And whilst what you can hold is extensive, not everything is eligible to be held within an ISA. For example, cryptocurrencies and some individual stocks that are listed on exchanges not recognised by HMRC or are traded as an American depository share are not eligible to be held in an ISA. But these sort of stocks are few and far between, and most stocks you'd want to hold, you probably can hold within an ISA. There are some more rules and a limit you need to be aware of. Before we move on to that, let's address how you can actually open a stocks and shares ISA. It is worth remembering that an ISA is just a type of account. In order to open a stocks and shares ISA, you need to pick an investment platform that offers that type of account. Think of it like when you want to open a bank account, you have to pick a bank like Barclays, NatWest, Lloyds, etc. The same thing is true for stocks and shares ISAs. And in fact, most banks will actually offer a stocks and shares ISA, but they do tend to be more expensive providers. Instead, platforms that specialize in retail investing usually offer the most competitive and cheapest stocks and shares ISAs. I do actually have this comparison sheet that can help you find the best ISA provider for you. There are a number of things to think about when picking a platform, such as the fees they charge, what type of investments they offer, whether they offer a DIY or a managed service, or both, what the customer support is like, Trustpilot reviews, etc. And my spreadsheet helps you do all this research in one place with ease. There's a link to gain access to this in the description. It is important you make your own decision and pick the platform that is right for you, but one that I do like and that is low fee is Trading 212. And if you sign up through the link in my description, you can get a free fractional share worth up to £100. You can also use the promo code TOM within 10 days of opening your account to claim your fractional share. This is an affiliate link and code, so I do get something too for full transparency. Okay, back to the rules, and now we're going to look at limitations. Whilst there's no limits on how much your ISA can grow to, there is a limit on how much you can deposit. That being said, this limit is very generous at £20,000 per tax year. Some people get confused with this, but it is only your deposits that count towards this allowance. Dividends, gains, or interest do not count. It's worth noting that this 20k allowance is across all types of ISA. For example, you could not deposit 20k into a cash ISA and 20k into a stocks and shares ISA in the same tax year. Instead, you could put 10k into each. There also used to be a rule where you could only contribute to one of each type of ISA per tax year, but that is no longer the case. You can now open and contribute to multiple stocks and shares ISAs in the same tax year, but the overall allowance still applies. So for example, you could deposit 10k into a stocks and shares ISA on Trading 212 and 10k into a stocks and shares ISA on Invest Engine. Another thing to note about ISA allowances is that the lifetime ISA has its own allowance of 4k per tax year, but this does count towards the overall 20k ISA allowance. So again, as another example, in one tax year, you could deposit 16k into a stocks and shares ISA and 4k into a lifetime ISA to reach your allowance. It is also worth me saying here as well that the 20k is a cap, it's not a goal. It's a very generous allowance and most people will not come close to reaching it. The last thing to say here is that it is our responsibility to make sure we do not exceed the allowance, so make sure you keep track of your deposits. Whilst your platform may tell you how much of your allowance you have left, they do not know about your contributions to other platforms. So keep in mind that the displayed remaining allowance on your platform could be wrong if you have contributions elsewhere. With a type of account that has as many advantages as a stocks and shares ISA, you'd be forgiven for thinking there must be some sort of limit on withdrawals and penalties for accessing that money. But actually, you can withdraw from a stocks and shares ISA whenever you want, and this doesn't incur any penalties. However, if you do take money out of your ISA, you might lose that allowance for that tax year. For example, let's say you deposit 5k into an ISA and you have 15k of your allowance left. You may then, for whatever reason, withdraw that 5k. However, this may mean you still only have 15k of your allowance left. The 5k does not get added back to your allowance when you withdraw. I say may and might because there is one caveat where you can withdraw without it impacting your allowance, and that is if your provider offers a flexible ISA. If your stocks and shares ISA provider states their ISA is flexible, then you can withdraw and deposit back in again as much as you like within that tax year. This does not carry forward to the next tax year though, and it does have to be on the same platform. Trading 212, for example, offers a flexible ISA, and investors can replace money they've taken out that same tax year without using their allowance. Hopefully you're still with me, as there's just one more part of a stocks and shares ISA that you do need to understand, and that is transfers. This refers to the process of moving the balance of your stocks and shares ISA from one provider to another. As the government states, you can transfer all or part of your savings in your individual savings account from one provider to another at any time. It can be to a different type of ISA or the same type, and the investment can have been made this year or in previous years. And importantly, transfers do not use your allowance, so if you find a platform that you prefer to the one you're currently using, it is worth going through the official transfer process to get your cash and investments moved over, as withdrawing that money yourself and then trying to deposit onto another platform could lead to a bit of a disaster, especially if you've withdrawn more than 20k. Now, not all providers will allow you to transfer your investments directly, however. They may require you to liquidate your investments into cash, and then the cash can be transferred to the new provider, ready for you to invest into whatever you want again. When they do allow you to transfer your investment holdings directly, this is called an in-specie transfer. How you actually initiate a transfer will differ from one platform to the next, but the general rule is that you open an ISA on the platform you want to transfer to, navigate to the settings or menu page, and then follow the transfer process. For example, on Trading 212, once you've opened a stocks ISA, you can navigate to the menu page, the three lines at the bottom right, and then you'll see a portfolio transfers option. From there, you just follow the instructions. So there we have it. That's Stocks and Shares ISAs explained. I hope that was helpful and you're considering taking advantage of this account if you've not already. I've got plenty more beginner content coming out over the next few weeks, so be sure to like and subscribe so the algorithm knows to show you more of my content. Thank you for watching and I hope to see you in the next one.